We can use our hands for many things, and if the situation arises, even help save a life. The simple but effective method of CPR, which has saved countless lives since its birth 50 years ago, is the result of a quest to sustain life that began in ancient times. The first successful attempt to revive someone with mouth-to-mouth resuscitation was recorded in the 18th century, but the technique was later abandoned, replaced by a number of ineffective and sometimes bizarre methods. The modern use of mouth-to-mouth resuscitation began in the 1950s when a polio epidemic gripped the nation. A young Dr. James Elam was on the wards of University Hospital in Minnesota when he saw nurses rapidly wheeling a teenage boy down the corridor. The boy was turning blue, clearly just moments from death. The night before, Dr. Elam had read about an unorthodox method of resuscitating a non-breathing patient, and his instincts told him to use it now. As others looked on and gasped, he placed his mouth over the boy's and blew air into his lungs.
In 3 breaths, he was pink. I was then advised by the smart intern that I would get polio. I guess I was just cocky, I don't know. There's also the fact that here's a human being about to die. And I knew the manual methods wouldn't work either. I didn't have any oxygen. Yes, I did, right there.
Dr. Elam's bold and compassionate act saved the boy's life and gave the world the first reliable method to revive someone who has stopped breathing. As Dr. Elam, Dr. Peter Safar, and others pursued the development of this technique, another equally important discovery was being made by accident. Doctors recognized that rescue breathing alone was not enough to resuscitate stopped hearts. Among those addressing the problem was Dr. William Cowenhoven, an electrical engineer who had spearheaded the creation of the defibrillator a decade earlier. While conducting experiments to improve defibrillation techniques, Cowenhoven and his colleagues unexpectedly found that pressing hard on the chest with defibrillator paddles could force blood to flow from the heart. Further tests showed that the technique of external compression was as effective as open-chest heart massage. Eventually, the researchers working separately on external compression and ventilation joined forces when they appeared jointly at a conference in Maryland in 1960 and announced that combining the two methods produced the first truly effective approach to resuscitation. They made history and changed lives. Since that time, researchers have continued to study and refine the techniques of CPR, leading to the most recent recommendation that hands-only CPR can be just as effective as traditional CPR for adults who have collapsed from a sudden cardiac arrest. Thousands of lives have been saved by CPR, but statistics alone can't convey the impact that this method has had on individual lives.
I had a great life. I had a beautiful wife, 2 lovely girls. I was 38 years old at the time, was in good shape. The thought that I might be at risk for heart disease was not there. And I show up, and the last thing I expected to do was drop dead that day.
Got up one morning to go to the fitness center to work out. I'd been doing it several months. And I walk in, and there's 7 or 8 people standing, and I see Stuart laying on the floor, motionless. A couple other seconds go by, and I say, not a doctor. I took CPR course about 6 months previously. And so I checked his pulse, and I certainly didn't feel anything. Then you have just a split second worth of doubt where you try and figure out what you really do next, and then you just know this guy doesn't have any air, and his heart's not beating, and I launched into CPR. Fortunately, after doing it for several minutes, the paramedics showed up, and they put the defib on him. He did not have a pulse. They shocked him a couple of times and brought him back.
There had been 6 to 8 people witnessed me. When I had the event, they didn't know what was going on. They thought I was having a seizure. They did call 911, and the club did have a defibrillator.
always told myself I just really needed to go get the training because I didn't want to be in a position where I couldn't help in the event I was faced with those circumstances again.
Without Steve, without CPR, I just wouldn't be here. The gift that he's given me is extraordinary. Just the time that I've had with my family, with my children, you can't put a price on that.
To see the full video about the fascinating history behind the creation of CPR and how you can help save a life, go to heart.org/CPR.